But I'll just go ahead and get started. Sheila, you did a really flattering job describing a little bit about me and my background. But I guess the one thing that I would add to that is that I guess I cut my teeth over in the Bay Area and worked in an investment firm at the early stage, worked with mostly technology companies that were trying to create a social and environmental impact. And we would invest in those guys, and obviously, since they were part of our portfolio, do some work with them in order to get their companies to succeed. We'd also do some consulting with firms to help them with their impact strategies, corporate and social responsibility, and things like that. And so that, I guess, is where I entered into this space and took my interest in social entrepreneurship and in, I guess, entrepreneurship generally, and also in economic development. Every once in a while, this will go off, motion sensor light. But yeah, I guess that's what kind of, in a lot of ways, led me to my current job. I work for the Purple Knight Foundation. On the right of this screen there, just a little bit about us. Our mission is, as a technology organization, is really to inspire and educate the next generation of culturally grounded community-serving technology makers. And I guess this next generation definition has expanded a lot. We started as an organization that did after-school programs teaching computer science and coding to young people, middle schoolers and high schoolers, mostly in underserved communities, how to do those things and to get interested in jobs in computer science and STEM. And we've since grown, I guess, a lot and reached into pockets of really talented adults and adults from other communities that we're really inspired by throughout the state. We run a program that I guess falls under a number of, I guess, an umbrella that we call Malama programs called the Purple Prize. And we also run another program that's a design thinking program called Kamaki Nana. Those are kind of the two buckets that we work in mostly, venture and design thinking. And we really, aim to empower participants to transform systems through innovation and entrepreneurship. And I'll share a little bit about those in a second. We also recently just started a workforce development program called HACC, where in 6 months we're working to try to get non-college degree holders, ideally, but right now it can just be anybody looking to upskill or reskill into jobs in Salesforce and IT specifically. So filling, I guess, a niche there. Double click on Malama a little bit, share a little bit about my day job entails. These are the programs that are kind of in my portfolio of programs that I run. Purple Prize is a 6-month incubator program. Sheila's been involved in it for quite a long time. She may have shared a little bit about her experience in that with you all in previous conversations. We run this program annually, and what we try to do is take people with interesting technology ideas that create solutions, I guess, to local challenges. But then those technologies are rooted in Hawaiian values and create some kind of a social and environmental impact. And that's something that we've achieved some success in. Some of the teams there are doing great in both a business context, but also in terms of their impact and their alignment with the culture. And that's something we're really proud of. We've worked with 56 of them since 2017. And what we really try to do, I think, our biggest value add is the ability to raise resources and deploy them, as well as being able to help them to kind of navigate what that early stage, that valley of death of startups looks like and feels like for them. And so since that period of time, we've raised $200,000 and deployed that to teams. Kamaki Nana is also a design thinking program that we launched in 2019. Sheila participated in it as well, and it was so much fun. Really, really loved that work, and it's, I think, enlivened me in a lot of ways. But it's also kind of, I guess, branched out what the realities are, as we move forward in this kind of economic recovery moment. How do we redesign the way that we design our economy, the way that we design new solutions that address some of the challenges that they're being amplified through this, and those kinds of things come from, I guess, the think tank that is Kamaki Nana. And then we offer a fellowship program for high school students. We started this last year, didn't do it this year, unfortunately, but we hope to in the future and to expand this into a much larger activity of ours. but we take 3 high school students a year, and we basically bring them into the Purple Prize to shadow some teams. And they have a chance to work with those teams really, really closely over a 4-month period. By the end of that period, we've had, I guess last year we had an instance where one of those high school students were actually added to a team as an equal partner in the company. So super awesome results, and we've loved working with those high school students since then. Since I don't have this chat window open, Sheila, going forward, if you wouldn't mind just stopping me and letting me know if anybody has any questions. I want this to be like a super, loose, collaborative conversation. So
I'll jump in and say Faith typed in her background, so I'll read that to you all. Faith's background is in elementary education and currently working at the State Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design with the computer science team.
How cool. Awesome. Well, I feel like many of us have things that we should talk about at some point, and I feel like I could learn a lot from you, but today, I guess I'm in the position to give a little bit of my monopoly. But I hope that we all have a chance to connect in the future. Anyways, like I said, please feel free to ask questions throughout. You can just unmute yourself and interrupt me. I don't mind, or you can drop questions in the chat. I'm going to use some terminology, I guess, in this presentation that you may not be familiar with, just because I'm going to essentially deliver the presentation that I give to the entrepreneurs that I work with. And this should give you maybe, since many of you are educators, this should give you maybe an idea about how you can express some of these things. But also, I think this is the best way for me to kind of communicate what exactly these pitches are about and what maybe the characteristics of good pitches might look like. So the way that we'll do this today is that I'll go through just some high-level pitch basics. We'll talk about some of the, I guess, dimensions of good slides, characteristics of good slides. Then I'll show you a few example videos of some pitches if time permits. And I can give you guys a few tools that you can take into your classrooms or into your own settings as you're preparing people for their HACC presentations virtually or whatnot, that they can use to improve the quality of their pitches and their pitch decks. So that's what I'm hoping we can accomplish today, helping to navigate through it. This is just a disclaimer. I kind of said it, earlier on in the conversation, but I'm coming from an entrepreneurial context, and so not everything in here may link up directly to what it is that you guys are using, or doing. But I'm hoping that some of these things might shine through and be valuable for you in other settings. So, of course, at the end of this presentation, if you do want to kind of compare notes or talk story about these kinds of things, try to put together maybe a different kind of curriculum or get my thoughts about how you can adapt a pitch for a science or history class. I'm happy to have that conversation. I have some ideas there too. So I guess I'll get started. But really the first thing is, I'm sure everybody's wondering, is just what is a pitch, I guess, or what is my definition of a pitch? And I guess it boils down to simply a pitch is a persuasive communication method that prompts an audience to take action. And this could really be any action. In my case, it's can we incentivize somebody or prompt them to invest in the company, or to maybe join the team, or provide some other kind of resource. But in other cases, this could be you're prompting somebody to download the application, or you're prompting somebody to maybe create a partnership, a community partnership with an organization or something. But really, the pitch can really be anything, and that's highlighted by, I guess, these two simple lines. The pitch is elastic and its elements are consistent. Should be super dynamic. You should be able to flex it to a number of different settings. And so, consider your own personality. The pitch doesn't just have to be in a deck format, a PowerPoint format. It could be in a number of different mediums. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday in Aotearoa, who has an accelerator over there, and he also does some youth programs. And those guys are going to paint murals because the youth decided that that they were really interested, or the way that they best feel like they communicate mostly now to youth is through their art. And so they wanted to paint murals on, walls, and so they're going to do that in part of their they're in high school, or their equivalent of college, I guess, and so they'll paint anything, your personality, your audience, the amount of time that you have, and you should be able to change those things. A lot of the elements of the pitch, though, are going to be really consistent with the stuff that you cover. And depending on your audience, it may be just that. They might tell you exactly what you need to put into your pitch. It sounds like that may be the case with HACC as it comes up. And that's really fine. I mean, generally, you want to communicate really similar things. But yeah, I mean, be aware that I guess some of the elements that we'll share are pretty standard throughout any of the pitches for the investment context or for the entrepreneurship context. Some characteristics of a good pitch from a high level, and you'll see these in the examples of the slides that I'll show you, are brevity, use of visuals, and simplicity. Brevity, I mean, it's really, you could say a ton in a really short period of time without saying a lot. I don't do this well, so I'm complicit in this. But being brief, speaking slowly, something that I also don't do too well, goes a really long way in communicating a message, especially if it's challenging or complex. It's also worth considering that, especially in our current context with all these remote calls and Zooms, it's really important to be cognizant of the amount of time that you have and the amount of attention that the person on the other side of the Zoom might have as well. So if you're thinking that you're going to give a 10-minute long pitch, the likelihood that all 10 minutes of content that you describe connecting with your intended audience is probably pretty low. And so you're going to want to probably cut that pitch down to a minute, 3 minutes, be able to explain as much as you can in that period so that it connects with that person, so that they walk away with key attributes of this thing that you're trying to convince them on, walk away from the call with those things. In terms of visuals, graphs, charts, and images are essentially the things that you can use in these cases, but also I think if any way that you can visualize quantitative or complex operations, so if it's diagrams or if it's big numbers, whatever you can put up there to help to convey the scale or the impact, or convey complexity and help the person who's receiving the pitch to better understand what it is that you're trying to communicate, is totally a worthwhile use of visuals. And finally, simplicity. Stay away from technical lingo. I think we, in the tech space, everybody here is related to technology or computer science in one way or another. Tons of different technical things that you can really dive deeply into and get in the weeds on. You want to avoid that; it'll lose people. So try not to use those things, maybe, and keep your slides pretty clean. But then, of course, if you're, know your audience. So if you're pitching a bunch of technical people and they're going to understand these things, maybe it actually provides a value for you to share those technical aspects of your solution or this idea that you have. So I guess, yeah, these things are flexible. You just have to kind of go into it with the right kind of preparation, and you should be able to accomplish a lot. My last couple of things, maybe these are preferences of mine, but I really like clean slides, not a ton of color, and not a ton of bright color. So I feel like this may be a preference, but I've heard similar things from a lot of different people who evaluate these pitch decks on a frequent basis. So stay away from your reds, your bright oranges, that kind of stuff. So I guess going forward in this presentation, I'm going to walk you through what each of these slides are and what to look for in them. I'm going to skip over title and team because those are pretty self-explanatory, and I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of those examples of slides in the past. But I'll cover the rest of these from problem all the way through the impact vision, and then of course the acknowledgement and the mahalo that is just a mahalo in the middle of the screen. So I don't feel like I need to really go into depth there. But acknowledgement, I guess, while we're on this slide, I will share that at least in our work, we take into account culture so much, and we really give it a lot of value. We try to connect all of our things back to the culture. And so, one thing that we try to do is have everybody track the genealogy of their projects or the lineage of their projects, and who was the person who held the knowledge to inspire you. What was that thing that inspired you? What inspired them? Who inspired them? All the way back to the kupuna and the ancestors that I guess initially created that idea, or maybe initially sparked that idea. We try to acknowledge that the thing didn't come from us necessarily. It came from the product of a lot of different people, the community around us. And so acknowledgement is in a lot of cases an exercise of how you verbalize your gratitude. And so I think some time and intention in thinking about how you do your acknowledgements and what you acknowledge at the end of your presentation is certainly a worthwhile thing to do here in a cultural context. A couple of key terms just to go through before I get into this. I'm sure many of you guys who have done entrepreneurial programs, and I think that Sheila also, she's smiling because I think she just shared some of these key terms with you beforehand. But thought I would just reintroduce them. User beneficiary is your target audience that your product is addressing. In beneficiary context, it may be who gets impacted by this product's existence. So if you're creating renewable energy product or something like that, the scientists, even though they're going to be the users of this renewable energy product, are not going to be necessarily the beneficiaries, but the communities that are affected by the renewable energy will be. Environment will be a beneficiary. So I guess that's maybe the some of the instances where it goes beyond the norm. In terms of traction, what I mean by traction is examples of momentum or indicators of some potential success. What are, I guess, examples that prove that this thing is possible or is worthwhile my investment or my resource of whatever that thing is. The short-term plan of action is, the length of these short terms obviously differ, but at the early stages and at the stages of, I think, HACC, your short-term plan of action is really no longer than 90 days. And anything beyond that is guessing. It's a shot in the dark. It changes, so quickly. So I think that 90 days is a good amount of time for that to kind of fit into. And the vision, what do you want the thing to be? It's really simple. Aspirational impact. The example that I gave is that you see a 10% decrease in Hawaii poverty over the next 12 months. A statement like that is huge vision, amazing vision, something that gets people jazzed and excited about what it is that you're doing and shows, exactly what wakes you up in the morning and what drives you forward in the design of your project. So this is something that, I guess also kind of gets mixed up with mission and some other things. So I thought I would clarify it. Okay, well, we're past, I guess, the pitch basics. So I'll take a moment and before I get into some sample slides, just answer any questions if you guys have them so far. If none, we can just move through. Okay, cool. I got the thumbs up from Sheila, so I'm going to get going on this next section. So some example slides. Start with the problem. Well, like I said, I was going to skip the title and the team. So on the problem slide, I want you to tell us and show us what community or environmental problem that you're trying to solve, or maybe a social problem that you're trying to solve. Why is it important to your team? Who are you solving this problem for? And why are you the right person to solve this problem? Anything related to the problem, I guess, fits into this slide, but it doesn't always have to be spelled out. The use of pictures is really important. And in this example, I think this is a great one. It's from a company that pitched at Google Ventures demo day in 2018. I think it's good because literally says one quantitative metric of what the problem is. As she's in the left corner of this slide, that 1 in 30 kids experience a catastrophic injury before they graduate high school, and that's a picture of her co-founder grimacing in pain. Obviously, this problem sucks. So I think it's this is a great slide to just show that this is a great slide, simple visuals and data, really brief, that explains exactly what this problem they're trying to solve is. So this is my example of a good problem slide. And I guess just to clarify too, this is a deceiving image, that the slide itself is just the image, the large image on the left. Everything else is part of the recording. This slide, user and beneficiary slide, is from the deck of a company called 3R Water, locally based, was in the Purple Prize in 2019. They basically track the amount of runoff water that they reduce from going into stormwater drains and things like that in our ecosystem, by using an application that allows people to track the kinds of catchment devices that they install. So in this slide, what we want you to show is who the user beneficiary is, and how big the problem is, and any other interesting data from your primary or secondary research that might be significant for your product's user effectiveness. So in this case, obviously her product is facing stormwater utilities, but then she has a second, market which she's selling to through her product, which is countries, counties, governments. And so this is, a example of the size of her market in a quick visual, and it shows exactly who those users and beneficiaries are. So I think this is a well-articulated slide, very simple, not the prettiest, but it gets the job done. In the solution slide, we want you to show how succinctly and clearly, your core value propositions are to your customer, or it just show the core value propositions to your customer. In this example, this is a product that reduces the cost of heat transfer through hardware. The customer needs a cheaper, more effective technology because with their product. The picture shows that does that. The competitor, or the old way, is to roll, bend, weld, roll, stamp, bend, assemble. It's just this process with a relatively small impact on heating. And the new company, it's a much simpler process, addresses a much larger area, has a larger impact. So obviously they accomplished this problem, they solved this problem a lot better than their competition. So a slide that articulates this is really helpful. And visually, I might like circles, but I think that this is a solid visual description of what it is that this thing is trying to do. So here's an example of a traction slide from an education technology company. The traction slide is really about, what have you accomplished in the last couple of months, or any term that is meaningful. So if you've been around, if your company's been around for a year, what did you accomplish in the last year? Basically, what helps you tell your story the best is, I think, the best way to figure out what that term should be. And over those last couple of months, what data was significant that you were on the right path? Were there any promising leads? So in this case, this education technology product, over the last couple of months, they built this awesome dashboard, and then they went and created partnerships with a bunch of these public school districts. So huge progress, amazing traction. I'm stoked with it. And when they tell the story of it, it really shows me that they've been working hard, and that there is, if this traction continues, they're going to grow pretty quickly. Um, yeah, I think that's a good place to stop there. Here's an example of a short-term plan slide from one of the 2019 Purple Prize teams. The title, I guess, is deceiving, where it's the solution and the strategy, but it really is, strategically, how are they going to move forward? They broke this up into phases of development, and I'm sure that many of you guys are, think in that same way by breaking down development phases for software development or engineering. In this case, they just, I think, visualized it in a really creative way. They put the canoe on a journey from one landmark to the next, from one island to the next, and eventually they're going to reach, their destination of launching and continuing to develop content. Pretty simple slide there. Here's a call to action slide. So this is, I guess, the important one. It can be articulated in a number of different ways. You really need to, I think the best way to think about this is really, in order to execute the short-term plan, what do you need? And it may not be capital, but if it is, how much capital do you think? If it's not capital, then what is it? If it's the Purple Prize and you're trying to get into an incubator or something like that, what about that incubator do you absolutely need in order to be successful in achieving your goal, your vision? And if it's a team member, be explicit about what skills you need. I think this is a really good example because it's super simple, breaks things down by quarters, and this is exactly where she is now, when and what she needs when. So I think that this is a really well done slide, and would certainly recommend this this format for similar call to action slides, rather than maybe your big numbers. That can be said. And then finally, the impact vision slide, and this is from the same education technology deck. They just did a really amazing job. Here it's if I accomplish these goals, what's going to happen and when? What's the measurable impact that you're hoping to achieve and in what time frame? So if this company does what it needs to do by year 5, it's going to change the lives of 10 million students a year. That's incredibly amazing. Who would not want to help you? And I really love the simplicity of the graphics here and the brevity of the slide. Not that many words on the slide, really clear visuals. Yeah, I think this is well done. Just to recap, and we can go backward and cover these again if you guys would like, but just to recap, what's a pitch? Persuasive communication that prompts an audience to take action. What should a pitch be? Elastic and consistent. And characteristics of a good pitch. Brevity, use visuals, and keep it consistent in terms of its design and length. Some other considerations that I bring up too are, I guess they're all listed on this slide. But body language is important. Over 50% of what you convey is expressed through your body language. So and you don't need to get as nitty-gritty as what direction you turn your feet or point your feet. But I guess your confidence when you're delivering your pitch deck is important, and how you express that confidence is important. There's some people who can do it a little bit easier than others. Some people have to try a little bit harder. It's okay to talk quietly as long as you seem comfortable. So, whatever you got to do in order to feel good as you go into this process, I think it's a worthwhile investment of your time and preparation. Know your audience. So beforehand, in HACC, you know who your judges are. In the Purple Prize, you know who your judges are. And if in the case you're an entrepreneur and you're about to pitch an investment firm, it's pretty likely that you have the ability of knowing who you're going to pitch. So go into it knowing exactly who it is that you're pitching, so you can tailor your pitch or the way, your demeanor to link up with what you think will be best received by them. Remember, and the intention of the pitch is to be persuasive. So, if you're going to be persuasive, then you have to connect. Story is a great way to connect and engage with these folks. So, weave folks into a really powerful narrative. And that narrative could be, the story of how you arrived at this problem. It could be the story of you putting that solution into action. Just take the person who's listening to the pitch on a journey, and get them to feel what you feel, the passion that you feel as you are presenting. And by the time that you reach that climactic point of that ask, whatever that ask is, that call to action, they should feel like they're ready to jump on board with you. So try to tell that story in a way that catalyzes that kind of feeling. Obviously, researching beforehand and kind of knowing the answers to questions that are going to come up is going to be really important, and it also is going to help with your pitch delivery. If I think that you guys all know this, and when you're educating students, this is probably something that you really put a lot of effort into getting the students to do. But preparation is super, super key, and research is certainly a part of that. And finally, there's a bunch of different ways that they can prepare for pitching, but ultimately, I think it comes down to just reps. You've got to do it in a bunch of different settings. You've got to do it in. I tell my teams, they're usually over 21 years old. I usually tell them, you got to go and deliver your 1-minute elevator pitch in a bar, and you got to you just go down the row of folks sitting there, and get everybody to get your app, download your app or whatever. But it could be, in this case, it could be fellow students, it could be teachers, it could be their parents, it could be classmates, whatever people that they can pitch to share, I guess, what they're really trying to deliver, what vision they have. I think is an important exercise for everybody to go through. I have a few issues with the pitch, and I maybe have talked about these earlier on about the mural example in Aotearoa. But my issues with the pitch is that in some cases the pitch can be a little bit unrealistic because it's super structured, and in actuality, it's only in times like hackathons or in pitch competitions or in some of the podcasts that we listen to, that we or on Shark Tank on TV, that you really see these cookie cutter kind of pitch decks delivered. So many cases, these conversations and these presentations are done in multiple meetings, or if they're in one meeting or whatever, to deliver or to create a partnership, or to lock in some investment funding. This is usually in a much less formal sort of conversation. So just keep that in mind. But I think that learning this method helps to I think connect the dots in your head. It's a great exercise to be able to think about how do you systematically tell a story in a provocative way, and in one that is convincing, so that in the future, when you do actually deliver a pitch of some kind, you I guess have a framework in your mind of what the steps for you to do so are. But yeah, really, I think that with you guys all as educators, I think it's so cool to give students the agency to decide how they want to present their stuff. We've tried this in a couple of ways. In the fellowship, we give the students the ability to take whatever medium they feel most compelled to use or most comfortable with to present how they felt about their journey through the fellowship program. And so last year we had one kid who built an app. We had a kid who made a website, and then we had one girl who wrote a beautiful article on a blog. And those are just their ways of expressing themselves. But like the example in Aotearoa, kids may feel like they want to draw something or produce something in a different medium, and I think that's really cool. So yeah, elasticity. That, I guess, concludes that section of the presentation. I guess pretty much the whole presentation Now I've got some examples of pitches to show you, some video recordings, and I we can get into that, but just want to pause here if anybody has any questions, um, or wants to talk story about some element of this.
So,
go ahead.
Okay, so Sheila asked me to put into context the pitch presentation to the HACC event. And as Alec pointed out, his pitch is more geared towards an investor pitch or things of that nature. A couple of distinctions are in a pitch presentation, even if it's like the Purple Prize, everybody has their own idea and they're trying to pitch their idea to the judges or the investors. In a HACC, our kind of HACC is we have our challenges, 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the year, and we have anywhere, one year we had 43 teams. So you get the same pitch over and over again, and one of the most important things you need to provide in your pitch is what makes your solution unique and different. Because in the context of the HACC, you're actually competing with other people coming up with solutions for the same problem. So we don't actually end up with a problem slide in ours because the problem is the HACC challenge that they're pitching to. Not that you don't need to understand that or reiterate that you understand it in a slide, but that is, that's a very brief slide. More important is, okay, here's the problem. You guys all know what this HACC event, HACC challenge is about, and therefore this is how we are solving that problem or achieving a solution to that challenge.
I think that was a great way to look at it, because we are being given our problem. But sometimes I have found teams, especially high school teams and a middle school team that we brought in the 2016, they got sidetracked by not knowing the problem. They thought they did. And so it really is key, and I think this is what Alec is trying to bring up, is you got to know your problem. You got to make sure you are aware of what that is, and even Blaze said, you got to revisit that every time to make sure that their application that they're developing is coming back to solve that problem. And it's such a critical piece. And I love that he used the beneficiary slide where, who is your target audience? Although you're developing an application for the provider or a challenge SME, you're really probably going to have to know about who is going to be benefiting from the application. It could be the challenger, but in most times in our challenges, it's been users. And so keeping that separate and understanding who the beneficiary is of your application is really key. And another piece that he's brought up that may or may not show up in some of our slides or in our pitch decks, but could be a key judgment piece or a judging positive piece, is having traction. So if for some reason you've developed an application and you've tested it on student body, and you went from just a regular test, which most people will do, to people going, can I use it now? And all of a sudden you have 100 users or 50 users or 20 users that are actually wanting to use it, even without the functionality, the true functionality being in there. This is a key slide that you can put into your pitch deck that you don't normally see. So if you want to stand out as a unique applicant or a participant in the HACC, this could be something that pushes you over. Oh my God, they did it in a week and a half. They tested it. Oh, by the way, they have 20 users, and and for some reason that morning you saw that you actually had 100 users, guess what you can share? We went from 20 yesterday to 100 today. So it's speeding, and you need to take this, right? And that's that confidence that Blaze was talking about when he said you need to brag. And so traction, although not necessarily seen in HACC, could be a determinant, a very, very unique determinant for you. And then also, I've also seen some of this in some of the decks, is the call to action. You know, really knowing what's the next step. It might not be money, or it might not be anything else, but, you know, if you did this, today it's like this, and tomorrow it's like that, but in a year you could have 100 invasive species identified because of the signature and the GIS functions that we put in this application today. Really? How do you know that, right? I mean, so all of these things are something above and beyond some of the things that we've actually seen in the HACC decks. So I wanted to bring that full circle, because sometimes we think of it as different, but when you look at the functionality of some of these issues that Alec has brought up, it really makes you unique, right? The brevity. Sometimes we use slides that have so much stuff in it that you can't even see it. For instance, the slides I showed you earlier, you had this thing, it was impressive, but when you started looking at him going back and forth and moving all over the place, it was kind of confusing, you know? So you have to know when to stop, keep your eye on brevity, keep your eye on consistency, and really look at who your audience is, which are your judges, and who your users are, okay? And one of the other key things that you'll notice, so that's the deck, and Alec really came back full circle and brought up the body language, know your audience, and that last slide is something that teachers could use for any kind of presentation. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're focusing in on educators, is for that very reason, is the HACC is there for you as an authentic learning environment to actually participate in the HACC, but all the other resources that are on the HACC website are key things that you can use for all kinds of other pieces. So I just wanted to share that with you. I was going crazy on the side trying to keep my mouth zipped, but I'm sorry, but I was really excited that you shared all those different ways of viewing a slide deck. So anybody else have questions, comments, feel free. And then, of course, Alec, if you want to also comment to that.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila. That was really helpful. A couple of just quick comments, and then I can take a couple more questions. Just on the user and beneficiary, I think is one of those things that I think are an important component to highlight. I've seen the HACC presentations for the last couple of years, and I think that there's an incredible the technical I guess capacity of the people that engage themselves in HACC, and the talent there is really, really incredible. But I always think whenever I see some of those technical solutions, like who is actually going to end up using this thing? I think about like the GEMS dashboard last year. Ultimately, I feel like the user of that would be probably a person that is, you know, maybe applying for this this renewable energy or solar loan for the first time, this tax credit or something, and it's a relatively challenging process. And so how do you make that as simple as possible for the user and put yourself in their shoes? And so I do think that that user beneficiary, I guess, components of the pitch, and being able to link it back to whoever that end user actually ends up being on both sides of it, whether it's the front end or the back end, is an important thing to like add, and then add to the narrative. How does this thing fit, you know, into those people's lives? And I think Blaze did I think it was your video earlier on, great job doing that, because the video actually, you know, puts somebody not in the GEMS setting, but I think it was the HECO Oh, okay, thanks for correcting me. So that video is great. You put that product directly in front of one of the users or beneficiaries of this product, and I believe that there was a big backend dashboard that was on the other side of this, and that's going to get used by engineers and or data analysts and folks that actually know about this stuff. So it doesn't need to be super elegant, but a solution that addresses just the day-to-day user from a design perspective has to be really, really simple. And so I think it was cool that they brought it back to the end user in that presentation. Just thought I would add that. But if there's are there any questions? Or comments? Okay. All right, well, I'm cognizant of time, and I know that you've only got 5 more minutes budgeted for me, so I'll give you the choice, Sheila. I can either share one of the pitches from past prizes, or I can go through some of these different tools from the pitches.
I have a question. This is Renee. Let me put my video on since I combed my hair today, since I knew you were going to. So, you don't know this. Yesterday, she made us put our video on. It's like, oh my God, I gotta go brush my teeth. Anyway, I'm sorry. I missed part of this because I have a school meeting, but one of my concerns would be to make sure that we are getting the message of in the prompts or in these topics for people of color, for social justice, that we can turn that conversation around. And so with student voice and having them come up with their own concerns, that would be one way to do it. But I know you were talking about these prompts, and I think we should strongly infuse racial justice into this process. Thank you.
Yeah, Renee, I think you're totally right, and that's something that I'm cognizant of, because I know that entrepreneurship isn't the first language of our target audience, for sure. And so when we go about, I guess, teaching this process, sometimes it takes time. Also because, like, in our community, especially if you're trying to create something that may need to be a public service, maybe it's how do you increase the amount of Native Hawaiian language use in our community, for example. That's something that may not be productized, or may not be something that you charge for. And so how do you communicate competitive advantages and these different kinds of value propositions and things like that? It doesn't exactly work. So I think to boil it back down, it's regardless of the medium that they use, it's what is the story that they are telling, and how does it link back to them as people? And I think that that's also where, for social justice and for engaging people of color and people from less or disenfranchised backgrounds, underrepresented backgrounds, I think that it's really important that we give them space to tell their story and their affiliation or connection to the problem, which is where the problem usually gives them the actual advantage as founders to address that problem. So yeah, story, I guess, and story and the medium they get to use. I love that question, though. I love that statement. Okay. Well, Sheila's giving me the go-ahead for 10:45. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share my screen again, and I'll give you guys, let's see, we'll choose 2 pitches, or maybe we'll choose 1 pitch and I'll just show the rest of the tools. But I'm going to click on this one company called Delos Minas, and this is not a company that I know well, but I saw this pitch and I was really impressed by it. This is Latina, both Latina founders. So there is a people of color element. And I think that they tell the story in this particular pitch impeccably well. So I'll share this and mute myself.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to see you all here today. I'm Sara Nagalin, CEO and co-founder of De Las Niñas, a healthy lifestyle platform built for Latinas by Latinas. We all know healthcare is expensive, and we're all paying a lot for healthcare. One of the ways to address the ever-increasing costs of healthcare is to tackle chronic conditions. In the US, 90% of the annual healthcare expenditures are for people with chronic conditions. This includes things like diabetes, heart disease, hypertension. Diabetes alone costs the US healthcare system and employers $237 billion a year. I call out diabetes specifically because there are 28 million Latinas in the US, and we are nearly 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes and 1.5 times more likely to die from it. My mom and I started De Las Niñas because we want to change that story. With my mom's expertise as a bilingual health educator, my experience in business development, human-centered design, and community strategy, we are committed to empowering Latinas to live healthier lives, and in doing so, save the healthcare sector millions of dollars. The Latina is the hub of the family. To affect Latina health is to impact the health of the Latinx community at large. Our unique approach to healthy living is linguistically and culturally tailored, built on community, grounded in evidence-based information, and a proven behavior change model. We focus on healthy eating, physical activity, and social support. Through our bilingual app and website, we provide evidence-based health information along with easy-to-use tools like a healthy lifestyle checklist and activity tracker to help Latinas help themselves and their families live healthier lives. We understand the needs, pain points, and motivations of Latinas, not just because we are Latinas ourselves, but because through a highly competitive process, we were awarded a $1.7 million grant from the National Institutes of Health and the National Cancer Institute. With this grant, we were able to build and test the De Las Niñas platform in a randomized trial with 200 women in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We learned so much from these women. But 2 of the most important things. One is that they're hungry for a trusted source for health information, and that immediately the look, feel, voice, and tone of De Las Niñas resonated with them. One woman said, "This was made for me." Our users are at the center of our product development, and user testing is a continual part of our process. So, Latinos are the largest minority population in the US. Again, there are 28 million Latinas in the US. Now, as a Latina, I can tell you, we are not a monolithic group. There is great diversity among Latinas. That's why, to start, we're going to focus on Mexican American women. The American Latino population is made up of 65% Mexican American people. Eventually, we'll expand to other audiences from Puerto Rico, Cuba, and other Latin American and Central American countries. Latinos account for $10 billion a year in health, wellness, prescription, and over-the-counter products. Latinas are the primary decision maker in their home, both culturally, financially, and when it comes to health. 86% of Latinas say they are the primary decision maker in their home. And this is not just when it comes to their immediate family. They are also making health decisions and managing health for their extended family, aging parents, loved ones, aunts, and uncles. Latinas increasingly use social media, the internet, and their smartphones to look for health information online. This includes their doctors and health plans. and they are more influenced by the information they find when it comes to making decisions about their care and the plans that they buy. So again, Latinas are the hub of the family. She is the key decision maker when it comes to culture, finances, and health. So, what makes the Las Niñas different from our competition? We provide Latinas an evidence-based approach validated through a randomized trial where we focused on their needs, motivations, and pain points. The Las Niñas is not a translation, it's a transcreation. We take science and we apply it to everyday situations in a culturally and linguistically appropriate way. And we are not a diet club. Everything we do is about creating sustainable behavior change to live a healthier life. We are food positive and body positive and proud of being Latina at any size. And we go on this journey not just for ourselves, but for our families and our larger community. So please, join us on this journey. We are looking to expand our network in the healthcare space. If you know of someone, or if you yourself work at a healthcare company or health plan that needs to engage their Latina patients, please reach out. We're here to help. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so that was one that I really, really enjoy sharing because I think that the story arc really is, it's incredibly done. They fit everything into that. I mean, it's a 6-minute long pitch, but they fit everything into there, from the market, who the user beneficiary is, to the traction they've established. It's just an incredible example of what storytelling and connection back to maybe culture, or connection to a person's calling, to this work that they're performing, or this project that they're doing, how that can be really powerful when communicating to an audience. And you also notice it's quite performative. This is something that's rehearsed. This is something that's been done before. It comes with a lot of emotion. And so I think, this just goes back to practice, and preparing really well to give this presentation. The last thing I'd highlight with that is that the ask is so short, but she brought you through that journey, telling that pitch to that final climactic ask. And at that point in time, we're all hooked. We're all ready to get involved in whatever way we can. And all she had to do was say, exactly what she needed, and who she wanted to talk to her. So I think that this was a really well done and good example. Usually, what I would do in allow you guys to kind of give some feedback on that and how to communicate, have a conversation about this, but I haven't budgeted time that well in this case. So I'll just jump into some tools for making some pitches better that you might be able to use. Really boils down to two things, I think, for pitch decks, and it's just templates and presentation software. So these are some templates that I like to use. Slides Go and Slide Carnival are both pretty good. They've got a bunch of free-to-use templates that you can download and import into PowerPoint or import into Google Slides, which are both pretty much the standard, I think, for creating these presentations. There's also Canva, which I've done a couple of slide decks in, mostly for ones that have been more produced. But I really like that interface, so I mean it's something that's definitely worthwhile checking out. Presentation software. I use Beautiful AI for things that are a little bit more, I guess, higher quality presentation, but it costs a little bit of money. But there is a free version that I think you can use that's up to 100 slides. Really cool tool, makes it really quick and easy to make something really nice. Prezi is an interesting way of putting together a presentation. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with Prezi. It does it in kind of a circular, very like mind map model, which I think is cool. It's a cool way of, it's a different medium, I think, entirely than just the regular presentation. And then Google Slides is something we're all familiar with. That is free. You can share it very easily. A really helpful tool. But anyways, oh yeah, and then virtual demo days. So we're on Zoom right now. You could use Zoom for these kind of demo days. Generally, demo day is kind of the word for where these pitches are presented. But we've used Zoom for virtual ones in the past. It's worked fine. It's just best to have a co-facilitator and some tech support if it's possible, and use privacy settings. We did have a Zoom bomber several months ago. That was luckily not horrible, but it just wasn't fun to deal with. So have your privacy settings prepared. A couple of other formats that maybe I'll click on one of them to show you. There's been demo days that have been done in these kinds of environments where people have stood up websites, and they make it possible for you to see the company, a little bit about the company, watch the pitch, reach out to them, share the thing, go to their website, all the things. And I think this is a cool model for presenting pitches, pretty lightweight way, especially if you're using something like WordPress for your website. There's templates that do exactly that. So thought I'd share that. Yeah, I guess that's it for my presentation. This is my contact information. If you guys want to contact me in any way to talk story more about pitches, or if you just want to talk story about a fellowship program or something, totally open to doing that. And would love to connect with all of you anyways individually to talk about the work that you're doing at your schools. One thing that I thought I should mention is that we did recently launch a youth innovation competition for middle school and high school age kids called Kipuka. And it's a really lightweight competition. So many organizations have stepped up to the plate in reaction to COVID and put together sustainability challenges, or put together entrepreneurship sort of incubator type programs over the last several weeks and months. And so tons of ideas have been created by kids, and we want to be kind of out there to resource them and to help them to get to that next stage through funding. And so we're offering $2,000 spread amongst winners of this competition. You can take a look at our website, which is purpleprize.com. And then this link is /Kipuka, Kipuka. So check that out if you've got some ideas for students that have great ideas that are for solutions that solve problems here. But anyways, that concludes my presentation. I really appreciate you having me again, Sheila and Thelma. And I hope that you guys are all able to take something from this and bring it into your classrooms, or prepare students for great HACC presentations. So yeah, just really appreciate the opportunity.